I will introduce you.
Okay. You gonna be our timer?
I will do it. I got all uppity and excited about it last time. I feel like I should.
Uppity and excited.
Yeah, I was losing my marbles about how much fun it was, so I figure I should do it again,
You better be careful, it might be a permanent appointment.
right? Yeah, right.
It's really good to see you.
Thank you.
Hey, Gary, how are you?
Okay, I got you taken care of, Bob.
Okay.
Welcome to MidDay Toastmasters on Thursday. Thank you for attending. We are going to a fantastic meeting today. Our Toastmaster is Bob Donnelly, and before I introduce him, I want to remind everyone that we are in our 50th year and we're going to have a celebration this year. Karen Austin is heading that up and is brainstorming some ideas for what we may like to do. And later in the meeting, during the business meeting, I'd like Karen to just say when we think the celebration will be or if there's any sort of a calendar yet. We're really looking for input because this is our club and our celebration. Let's be a part of that. And the other discussion for officers, we'll table the dues question today, Charles, but we'll have some updates for you on dues next week. All right, without further ado, let me introduce our Toastmaster of the day, Bob Donnelly.
Madam President is not chairman.
Yes.
That's right.
He's the president of the club, not the chairman of the club.
That's right.
Welcome everyone to our Thursday in July, our last Thursday in July. This has gone into the past after today. And today, we really want to create a vision. I could use new glasses, so maybe that would give you a new vision. We don't have a major turnout. As a matter of fact, I don't see any guests here today. Let's see if we can't bring some guests. I've been working on 2 people. I send them the information, but they don't respond.
Gotta close them, Bob.
But it would be nice. The other thing is that we do have this sign-up sheet, and we're usually looking for people the day of the meeting. So if you could, plan a little bit ahead. I'm going to pass this out again today. But sign the roster for the coming meetings. And we will be talking more, I hope, not in detail today about the 50th anniversary. I'm really anxious for that. Because I've been here for 20 years, I think. No, 18 years. So, and it was nice to see a few of the older members here last week. So we have no guests. Let's call on our invocator. When I set this up, usually when I'm the Toastmaster, I said you should come prepared. I would call on you to give your invocation. I haven't had any luck yet, and I don't really want to embarrass anybody, but I still like to emphasize that. And when I mentioned that, I also found out that some people don't think that's a good move, to put the pressure on people. But I thought that's one way of having you involved, to have an invocation. But for today, Dave Nichols is going to take care of our invocation.
Okay, very good.
So, folks, this will be a little bit different. I think we live in a highly fast-paced Western society in which we could all use a little more silence. So I'm going to ask you to repeat the words. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and repeat the words so you can choose the last word as you see fit. The words are, be still and know that I am God. You could say, be still and know that I am energy. Be still and know that I am higher power. Be still and know that I am safe. Whatever fits for you. So, and I want you to close your eyes right now, everybody. Be still and know that I am
Here.
Just hold to your side. Keep silent, please.
Oh.
So I'll repeat that and I'll say what I want. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know. Be still. B. Open your eyes, please. Thank you. And your
I'd like Dave to sit down again, so I can call him to stand up and give us our humor speech. Dave, would you? So how many of you have heard of Bob Hope? And if you haven't, I'll bet your grandparents have. So ask them. So, you know, Bob Hope lived to be 100. Did you know that, guys? And so we're going to talk about, just for a couple of minutes, a couple of his memories, things he said, nice things he said, or some whatever thing he said. Okay, so here's one. On turning 70, Bob said, "I still chase women, but only downhill." On turning 80, that's a time of your life when your birthday suit needs pressing. On turning 90, you know you're getting old when the candles cost more than the cake. On turning 100, I don't feel old. In fact, I don't feel anything until noon. Then it's time for my nap. On giving up his early career in boxing, I ruined my hands in the ring. The referee kept stepping on them. On never winning an Oscar, welcome to the Academy Awards, or as it's called at my home, Passover. On golf. Golf is my profession. Show business is just to pay the green fees. On presidents, I have performed for 6 presidents, but entertained only 6. On why I chose showbiz for my career. When I was born, the doctor said to my mother, "Congratulations, you have an 8-pound ham." On receiving the Congressional Gold Medal, I feel very humble, but I think I have the strength of character to fight it. On his family's early poverty, 4 of us slept in one bed. When it got cold, mother threw on another brother. On his 6 brothers, that's how I learned to dance, waiting for the bathroom. On his early failures, I would not have had anything to eat if it wasn't for the stuff the audience threw at me. On going to heaven, I've done all benefits for all religions. I'd hate to blow the hereafter on a technicality. So I hope you guys can practice humor in your own life and pass that on to others. Mr. Toastmaster. Now I'd like to introduce our general evaluator, Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, and good afternoon, everyone. My job as general evaluator is to kind of facilitate the second portion of our meeting. The first portion is where we have our speaking and table topics and a lot of things going on. And the second half of the meeting is where we evaluate our performance. So I have a number of people who are going to assist me in this. I've got 3 fine, experienced evaluators, Tracy, Dr. Bricky, and Karen. I've got a humorist, David, whom we've already heard from. I have a grammarian, Robin. And Robin, would you please tell us what your role is?
Absolutely, Charles. I am going to be listening for excellent uses of the English language, phrases, interesting things that catch my ear. And I will also be counting ahs, ums, filler words, watch, so, and pause is a very effective way to avoid those words. The word of the day is phenomenon, and phenomenon has just disappeared from Bob's phone. The definition of phenomenon is, I don't have the book definition, but to me, phenomenon is something extraordinary, out of the ordinary, unusual, noteworthy, and it's a very fun word to say, and I'm just giving myself an and for that filler word. Thank you, Charles. Back to you.
Thank you, Robin. And now Mike Rudd will be our timer for today. Mike.
To use phenomenon, I was at a music festival last Saturday, and one of my favorite 80s rappers, LL Cool J, sang the song, "I'm Something of a Phenomenon." Guess he must have thought he was pretty extraordinary. I'm going to be timing the speeches today at the green light, which is 4 minutes for Brandon and 5 minutes for John and I. I will be holding that up at halfway through your allotted time, the yellow sign goes up, and then at your final time, the red light will go up, and you have 30 seconds to wrap it up from there. At table topics, green at 1, yellow at 1.5, red at 2. Evaluators, green at 2, yellow at 2.5, and red at 3. And I will come back at the end of the meeting and report.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So, a phenomenon in his own right, Mike Rudd. Mike has even said that he wouldn't mind being the permanent timer. So,
That's amazing.
so I'll be back at the end of the meeting to bring all of this together. And at this point, I turn it back over to our Toastmaster.
We have what is a new speaker in a sense today because it's his icebreaker. He's been attending a number of meetings, but Brandon is going to give his icebreaker speech. He said he's a little tentative, and I think we all were when we gave icebreaker speeches. But it's a real accomplishment once you've done that. It's one of the hardest to do in a sense, but it's also one of the easiest because who do we know more about than ourselves? Maybe we don't want to let ourselves be known to others. But, so I'd like to introduce Brandon for his icebreaker speech, which he's titled, Run My Way.
Just for the record, I think my speech is going to run over. Could be considerable. Everything's going to I got two numbers for you, 26.2 and 42. 26.2 is the number of miles in a marathon. 42 is the number of years in me. So yes, I'm going to talk about marathons, my collective experience with them, and how these experiences are analogous to my own life. I should state, first off, that I've competed in and completed 7 of these riding events, and I'm currently in training for number 8.
Wow.
All of which were the nationwide Children's Hospitals Columbus Marathon. All right, so it's race day. You're down there with a horde of people, and just to give you a perspective, there's 18,000 runners, either marathoners or half marathoners, that take part in this event. So you're in this throng of people, and before the race starts, you're nervous and you're anxious, but you're also excited. And then the race finally does start, and it's madness, it's chaos. You have all these people running at different paces, and you can't, it's hard to move, let alone run. You're juking, you're trying to move. This is stressful, particularly if you're trying to hit a certain goal or a certain time. It's also not unlike how I felt when I graduated from Ohio State. I was competing against a lot of newly minted graduates, along with the existing workforce. This was a chaotic period in my life. I stumbled, and it was messy and hectic, but I found my way, and I got through it. So this is miles, 1 through 5 or so. So now I'm going to talk about miles 5 through 15. This is a great part of the race. The runners have thinned out, and you can actually run. You don't have to think about where your next step or your next 10 steps are going to be. You can just run. This is part of the race also where the pain starts creeping in. So the pain, something's going to start hurting, and then it's going to start hurting more, and then it's going to dissipate because there's a greater pain somewhere else. And this greater pain becomes even greater. That pain will dissipate. It's an awful cycle that repeats itself and repeats itself. There's also a phenomenon that happens, at least to me, during this stage of the race. It's kind of like being in the zone. I call it being in the pocket. Now, when I'm in the pocket, I'm running, and I'm running fast, and it's easy. I'm floating, but I'm also very perceptive. I'm really in the moment. And I call it being in the pocket because it's like I'm just hanging out. Someone else is doing all the work. I'm just checking things out. Oh, look at that dog. That's a funny sign. This guy's wearing weird pants. You're just really in the moment and it feels great. Unfortunately, it doesn't last too long. Now I associate this part of the race, and more specifically, this phenomenon of being in the pocket with my mid to late 20s when I worked for the airlines in Washington, D.C. This was a time when I felt incredibly alive, vibrant. It was also marked with, some hiccups and some rough patches. But it was a very vibrant time in my life. I was able to travel. So working for the airlines, I would work weeks and months, a lot of hours, only to travel. So I traveled to London and Paris and Holland, Switzerland, Argentina, many great places. All right, back to the race. So we're talking about miles 16 through 24. This is dreadful. This is the worst. It's the worst because pain is all over. It's comprehensive, it's all consuming. Worse yet, the race it's not even close to me. Moreover, there's a lot of race to go. The pain's only going to get worse. I often joke, kind of joking, kind of serious, more joking, that this is the part of the race where I contemplate running in front of traffic. Now, I never have, but it takes a lot of perseverance just to keep going, just to go that extra step, to make the one foot go in front of the other when each footfall hurts, and almost hurts worse than the last. So I associate this point of the race with my early to mid-30s. It was this point in my life when I suffered a stroke. I also experienced profound heartbreak, and I experienced the anxiety and the stress of changing my career. All right, last 2 miles. I think I got this. I think I got it. All right, let's go. So, last 2 miles. Just as your body is saturated with sweat, layers upon layers of sweat, it's also saturated with layers of pain. And it's real, and it's the worst. But it's all right. The end of the race is near. You can kind of see that this race it's almost over. And as you take each step, you start growing. You grow a sense of pride, a sense of accomplishment. And myself, it happens every race. I start getting a little emotional. But I use this emotion, and I use these feelings of pride and accomplishment as fuel. And they fuel me to that finish line. There's no way with this fuel that I can be stopped. During this part of the race, I break it down into 2 parts, really. First is reflection. I think of my training, I think about the race itself, how it's gone, my experiences during it. I also think about, the second part of this part is being in the moment. Now, after I've reflected on the race and my training and all that, as I get closer to the finish line, I really want to be present, to totally soak up this atmosphere. And so I turn off the music, I try to see all the sights, hear all the sounds, really feel everything. Now, not surprisingly, this part of the race correlates to the last couple of years of my life. And while I have had success professionally and academically, and I've made countless friends throughout the country and even the world, there's been a goal of mine that's been elusive, and that's starting my own family. And I stand before you today, engaged to the love of my life, and in a couple short months, we'll be married. And I've had to persevere to get to this point. But as I stand here, I also, at this point in my life, I'm reflective on my journey, and also I'm living each day in the moment, really trying to soak up all these experiences one day at a time. and I'm charging hard to the day when I say I do.
That was a really nice introduction to Brian.
I'm about to pass out.
It's like the last 2 miles.
You made 26.4, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, my.
Before our next speaker, I'd like to pass the schedule around and the evaluation forms. If you have a few minutes, just take it to write the evaluation forms. Our next speaker is John McDermott. He's speaking from the manual to get to the point